I used to think keeping quiet kept the peace. That's what I told myself. Anyway, but the morning I walked into my father's garage and saw the shelf bare, the medals gone, and that glitter ink note signed, Love, Sabrina. Something inside me cracked for good. For years I'd let it slide. Every insult, every favor, every time she called me cold while taking what I worked for. I told myself family meant endurance, but standing there with that empty space where my honor used to be, I finally understood. Endurance isn't love, it's surrender. My name is Rhonda Mitchell, and that day I stopped surrendering. I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I just folded her note, put it in my pocket, and made a quiet promise she never heard. Because what she sold for $250 was never just mine to lose. It was raining the way it always did in Auburn. Soft, endless, patient. The kind of rain that seeps into everything and never really leaves. My father's house sat at the end of a moss-covered road, sagging under the weight of years and wet air. The siding was dull, the roof patched with tin, and the garage door hung half open like a yawn. It smelled of oil, old paint, and time. Inside, the silence had its own rhythm. That garage had once been our world, where my father taught me how to hold a wrench, how to listen to the hum of an engine, how to fix what's broken without talking too much about it. I hadn't been back in months, maybe years, but that day the quiet felt heavier than it should have. I came to clear the place out, to make room for something new. Dust clung to every shelf. My eyes stopped at the far corner, where a metal box used to sit, the medals, the letters, the last proof of a life I'd already put behind me. The spot was empty now, outlined by a clean rectangle in the dust. A folded note lay there, written in bright pink glitter pen. Don't worry, I'll make good use of them. S. My throat tightened. The rain began tapping harder on the tin roof. In the living room, my father watched television, volume too loud, eyes half closed. When I asked about the box, he barely turned his head, said maybe she'd moved it, said I didn't care about that old stuff anymore. Old stuff. I walked back to the doorway of the garage, stared at the mark the box had left. Every medal had a story, nights in cargo bays, sandstorms, names that never came home. And now, even their memory had been handled like junk. Driving away. The rain blurred the windshield until everything outside dissolved. I kept hearing her words, old stuff, like a whisper meant to erase me. But some things don't wash off that easily. Some things, once taken, don't stay gone for long. A week passed before I could bring myself to touch anything in that apartment. Seattle rain never stopped. It hung in the air, cold and heavy, blurring the windows and swallowing the city in gray. I was catching up on work emails when a notification popped up at the corner of my screen. Recommended for you? Authentic Air Force medal set. For a second, I didn't breathe. I clicked it, and there it was. My box. The exact order I had placed them years ago. The same tiny scratch across the glass lid. Even the Humanitarian Service Medal tucked on the right. Price tag, $250. Seller, Brina Sunrise. My hands went cold. I called her. Loud music came through first. Then her voice, bright, careless, familiar. She laughed when I asked. Said they were just sitting there, collecting dust. Said she needed a deposit for her wedding photographer. Said she'd buy me a new set. Like they were shoes. I could barely get the words out. You didn't sell objects. You sold 10 years of my life. Then I ended the call. I printed the listing and sent it to my father, hoping he'd understand what that meant. His reply came minutes later. Let it go. Rhonda. It's just stuff. Stuff. Always that word. I opened my military records, hands shaking. Every medal had an ID, a digital record of issue. The one from the humanitarian mission, HUM ZO2QF, was still flagged classified origin. A small red note at the bottom. Restricted. Syrian operations. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. That medal was never supposed to leave federal custody. What I didn't know was that somewhere, hundreds of miles away, the man who bought it, an old logistics officer from my Qatar unit, had recognized the serial mark too. Within an hour, he reported it to the Office of Special Investigations, and the quiet life I'd built in Seattle started to dissolve, piece by piece. 2 days later, I was in a meeting at Boeing when my phone started buzzing nonstop. 3 missed calls from Dad, 5 from Sabrina. I slipped out of the conference room and called back. My father's voice tore through the line, raw with panic. "The feds are here. Rhonda! They're at my door. They're taking your sister. You brought this on us. They said it's about stolen property." I waited for him to stop shouting, then said quietly, "No, Dad." She brought them herself. And the line went dead. A minute later, an email appeared in my inbox from OSI headquarters. Formal statement requested from original recipient. Immediate compliance required. That evening, my phone lit up again, not with calls, but with videos. Someone had recorded the scene outside my father's house. 2 federal agents leading Sabrina out in handcuffs. The reflection of red and blue lights sliding across her face as she tried to hide from the cameras. Her name was already trending. I sat at my desk long after everyone had left. Seattle's rain hammering the glass. The city felt smaller than ever. Then my desk phone rang. A clipped voice on the other end introduced himself from Washington. D.C. Office of Special Investigations. Ms. Mitchell. "This case may involve an item connected to Operation Dawnlight. We'll need you in D.C. by the end of the week." I stared out at the rain, thicker than smoke, and felt that quiet, exact ache of inevitability, the kind that doesn't hurt all at once, but settles in like a truth you've known for years. That night, I opened my laptop. The listing was gone now, deleted. Only the saved image remained, my medals under cheap lighting, stolen dignity for sale. Beneath it was a message from the buyer, sent privately. "Don't let them guilt you for doing the right thing. Integrity still means something." I read it again. And again. It hit me then. Someone who'd never met me understood more than the people I'd spent my whole life protecting. By morning, I'd packed a bag. The next flight to D.C. left before dawn, and I was done waiting for permission to stand up for what was mine. Washington, D.C. looked like it had been built to make people feel small. Glass buildings, mirrored floors, the kind of quiet that made you hear your own heartbeat. Inside the OSI office, everything smelled of disinfectant and order. The hallway buzzed with fluorescent light. I sat across from Cole, Marcus Hale, while the clock ticked loud enough to make every second feel like a test. He flipped through my file with the calm precision of someone who'd seen too much already. When he finally looked up, his expression was measured. He told me the serial number from my medals linked to a restricted humanitarian file. I wasn't under investigation, but they needed my full cooperation. I straightened in the chair and told him he'd have it. When I walked out, my phone buzzed. An email from Boeing's HR department sat at the top of the screen. Pending federal investigation notice. Administrative leave effective immediately. No pay, no discussion. I stared at it for a long time before I laughed. Soft and bitter. So even honesty comes with unpaid leave now. 2 days later, my sister's face lit up my phone screen again, this time not in a call, but in a viral video. She was crying into the camera, mascara running, voice trembling like she was reciting a script. My sister, the victim. My name in her mouth sounded like a curse. My sister, the soldier, called the government on me. Over a few medals I was going to give to collectors. It spread like wildfire. Sister betrayal. Fire family before rules. Comments poured in. How heartless can you be? Another military robot ruining her family for rules. I turned off the phone, poured black coffee into a chipped mug, and stood by the window, outside. The Potomac shimmered under gray light. "Let them talk," I whispered. "They don't know what silence cost." A week passed before the storm shifted. Someone inside the military published an article on the internal network. Integrity under fire. Former officer upholds the code amid family pressure. It didn't name me, but I knew who it was about. The quote from an anonymous officer stood out. "Sometimes the hardest battles are fought in living rooms, not battlefields." I had no proof, but I could hear Marcus Hale's voice in those words. By that afternoon, I received another call, this time from the Department of Defense's Human Assets Division. They were launching a national initiative to recover lost or stolen military honors. Would I consider consulting? I let the silence stretch before answering. If it keeps others from going through this, yes. That night, in my rented apartment overlooking the city, I closed my laptop on another headline, dragging my name through the mud. I sat in the dark until the screen cooled, then said out loud, just to hear it, "Truth doesn't need defense. It just needs time." The phone rang before sunrise. My father's voice trembled on the other end. "Your sister's home. They released her. She's a wreck. Rhonda. She said you destroyed her life. She destroyed her own." I said. But he'd already hung up. Hours later, another call came, this time from the hospital. My father had collapsed in the kitchen. Minor stroke. I dropped everything and drove through the rain back to Auburn. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. My father looked small beneath the white sheets, half his face gray from exhaustion. Sabrina sat beside him, crying quietly, but her tears felt rehearsed. When he opened his eyes, the first words he spoke weren't "thank you for coming." They were, "If you go to Washington, don't come back. I can't look at you after what you did to her." I stood still. "You taught me rules." "Dad, I just lived by them." "Those rules made you lose your family," he muttered. "No," I said softly. "They protected what's left of me." Sabrina turned toward me, her voice shaking with false remorse. "You could fix this. Rhonda. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. They'd drop the case. Then what? You'd sell someone else's next?" I just needed help. "You had it. For years." The room fell into silence, except for the slow, steady beep of the monitor. Every sound marked the distance growing between us. Later that night, I found out she'd recorded the conversation on her phone. A short clip hit the internet hours later. My sister came to the hospital only to lecture me. 1 million views before morning. I didn't even watch it. I didn't need to. Then came another article, this time from the Washington Chronicle. A piece about women who refused to apologize for their principles. They used my photo from that military article and called me the unapologetic veteran. Two worlds collided. Some called me a hero, others a monster. Marcus sent a short message that night. "The noise will pass. But remember, every controversy leaves a mark. Make sure yours stands for something." When my father was discharged, he wouldn't meet my eyes. Before I left, he said quietly, "You've made your choice, Rhonda. Don't expect me to make peace with it." I took his hand anyway. "I don't need peace, Dad. I need purpose." The rain followed me all the way back to the car. The roads shimmered under the streetlights, as if the whole town were crying with me. On the passenger seat sat the empty metal box I'd brought from home. Silent, weightless, and waiting to be filled with something new. As I crossed the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, I turned on the radio. Philip Phillips was singing, "Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding and whispered, "Maybe home isn't a place. Maybe it's a principle." The city lights disappeared behind me, swallowed by the rain, and I drove east toward D.C., toward a place that didn't care about family or forgiveness. Only truth. 3 weeks later, I reported for duty at the Pentagon Annex. Washington felt nothing like home. Its streets too precise, its people too focused on direction to notice faces. Inside, the air smelled of metal and policy. I was assigned to the Lost Honors Recovery Initiative, a program designed to trace and reclaim military medals lost, stolen, or sold. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman accused of losing hers was now protecting everyone else's. The first meeting began in a conference room walled with glass. My new supervisor turned around, and I almost laughed. Lieutenant Cole, Marcus Hale, the OSI investigator who'd once grilled me like a suspect. He offered a half smile. "Didn't think we'd end up on the same team," I told him quietly. "Didn't think I'd be trusted again." He chuckled. "Trust finds its way back, if you make it earn you first." Working with Marcus was easier than expected. He knew systems. I knew people. He dealt in policy. I understood what loss looked like. Weeks later, during a late-night audit, I stumbled across more than 600 similar cases. Families pawning medals. Heirs selling what they didn't earn. I spent nights drafting a 40-page proposal for a national medal tracking system. Marcus read it in silence, then said, "You're turning your worst day into a blueprint for integrity." An email arrived from Sabrina. "You could have stopped this if you cared. You're turning my mistake into your career." I didn't finish reading. I simply deleted it and stared at the empty metal box on my desk. Some reminders you don't get rid of. A security officer later dropped a sealed OSI report on my desk. Sabrina had been fined, barred from federal work for 10 years, and ordered to repay what she'd earned. Marcus's signature marked the bottom. I sat still, emotionless, only breathing slower. That night, the city shimmered across the Potomac. I opened my laptop and began typing a letter to the Secretary of Defense. It's not just about medals. It's about memory, service, and the people who forget what those things mean. For the first time, I wasn't chasing peace. I was rebuilding purpose. 3 months later, I stood in the Pentagon's grand hearing room under white lights sharp enough to expose every flaw. The hearing was streamed across federal channels. My name was called as a key witness on ethics and asset protection. Halfway through, movement in the back caught my eye. Sabrina, her hair dark again, eyes hollow. Her lawyer spoke of misunderstanding, ignorance of classification laws. When he finished, I said calmly, but she knew they weren't hers. The room fell still. A committee member asked if I regretted reporting her. I looked straight ahead. If I'd stayed silent, I'd have betrayed everyone who earned their honors the right way, including my own father. Silence stretched before the chair finally nodded. During recess, Marcus brought me coffee. You just changed how this department defines integrity. No, I said. I just reminded them what it looks like. That evening, the Defense Department appointed me National Director of Lost Honors Recovery. Outside. Sabrina brushed past but stopped. I heard what you said about Dad. You were right, I nodded. That was enough. Later, alone in my new office, I hung the returned metal box on the wall, still marked with its faded red evidence tag. Marcus paused at the door. You're keeping the tag? Yes, I said. Because accountability isn't paperwork, it's character. The tag caught the light, proof that even damage, when faced head-on, can become its own kind of honor. A year after the hearing, winter wrapped Washington in quiet white. Snow gathered along the Potomac, soft and slow. My apartment overlooked the river, still and cold, and on the shelf of my office sat the old metal box, its red evidence tag fading, its edges worn smooth by time. The program had grown beyond anyone's plans. Hundreds of veterans had found their medals again, their families calling me a hero. Yet success never filled the silence that waited for me each night. One morning, a postcard came from my father. I saw your interview. You did good. I'm proud, even if I can't say it out loud. It was his first message in 2 years. I smiled but didn't cry. That was how he said sorry. That evening, a letter arrived from Sabrina, shaky and wrinkled. I finally understand what you were protecting. I didn't just sell medals, I sold your honor. I folded it and placed it beneath the box. On Sunday, I went to Arlington. I set a photo of us as children against a nameless grave and whispered, I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I need peace. Snow fell again as I walked away. Justice repairs. Forgiveness releases. 2 years after the hearing, the Pentagon held its annual Civil Service Honor Ceremony. The hall shimmered under white light, rows of uniforms and quiet expectation. I was scheduled to speak as director of the Logistics Accountability Division. Just before walking in, I learned Sabrina had registered to attend. I froze for half a second, then simply nodded. Some moments don't need permission. From the stage, I spotted her near the back. White blouse, hair tied low, no makeup. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. I began my speech. Accountability isn't punishment. It's the price we pay to be trusted again. And sometimes, the ones who hurt us most are the ones who remind us why integrity matters. The room stilled. Someone wiped a tear. After the ceremony, she approached me quietly. I can't undo what I did, she said. But I've been trying to live right. That's all it ever takes. I told her, living right. We shook hands as cameras flashed. The next morning, the photo appeared across the Pentagon network with the caption, Family Integrity. The Mitchell sisters. My father saw it in the paper. He didn't call. He didn't have to. That afternoon, neighbors watched him raise the old Air Force flag outside our house, the one he hadn't flown in 5 years. That night, I touched the metal box on my desk, the tag still faintly red under the light. It's still heavy, I whispered. But it's finally mine again. 10 years later, spring sunlight spilled through my office window in Washington, D.C. Life had grown quiet, steady, enough. On my desk sat two familiar boxes, the old metal case, its red evidence tag now pale and frayed, and a smaller one made of carved wood, engraved with the words, "Integrity doesn't expire." That morning, a package arrived from Portland. Inside was a handmade replica of the humanitarian medal, cast in recycled bronze, with a note. Not a replacement, a reminder. "Sabrina?" I smiled as tears blurred the light. Marcus stepped in, older now, calm as ever. "You kept both?" "Of course. One shows what I lost. The other, what I learned." He nodded. "Quiet victory, huh?" "The only kind worth having." As the camera drifted back, sunlight crossed both boxes, warm on one, cool on the other. Time didn't erase what happened. My voice would say, it just gave it shape. And somewhere between silence and forgiveness, I found peace. Outside, a breeze stirred the flag. Two boxes remained, the wound and the healing.